Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Derwin, and I'm here with Shane Buell. And today we're going to be going into the details of the Carolina fires. These broke out on March 1st, which was Saturday. Today is the fourth Tuesday. And we're going to go into what makes this situation unusual, and then also kind of tie in the smart city plans as well as the natural resources that are under the ground of what's burning right now. And my understanding, it has burned at least 4,200 acres. And there are many fires. I think we had about 200 reported fires. So it seems like there are some bigger ones and little ones, which is very unusual that they started at the same time. But we're going to go into that. And thank you, Shane, so much for digging up all this information. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so before you leave, and like, comment, and share this video so we can let people know what's really happening. So I'll let Shane go into what we found here.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So as she said, on Saturday, March 1st, there was over 200 fires that ended up developing in the Carolina region, most of which are in South Carolina, some of which were in North Carolina. And I found it to be very strange because only about a week before those fires, they were having snow and ice. And the dry conditions that were alleged to have caused the fire or been a factor in the fire had only probably existed for a few days because, like I said, a week before that, it was the snow and ice. And then prior to that, there was all the flooding and everything. So it's just really strange that it would have dried out so quickly. All right, so let's get into some of the pictures here. So this is a picture from, I believe this is near Myrtle Beach. This could also be the Georgetown area. So there was two fires near Myrtle Beach. One was 1,600 acres. That was the one that was near the Carolina forest between Myrtle Beach and Conway. And this could be Myrtle Beach or it could be Prince George in the Georgetown area. I'm not really sure. We do have another photo here that shows like how evenly these trees are burning. And it almost looks like a layer of plasma that's like stuck to these trees. It's only about like maybe an inch thick, but the tree is like completely coated in a layer of fire. It's really strange looking. Now, this photo is from Prince George in the Georgetown area. And this fire has now reached almost 1,500 acres with 0% containment still. The one near Myrtle Beach is at 30% containment. And I do believe that, at least for the Myrtle Beach fire in the Carolina forest, the forward progress has stopped. So the fire is not getting any bigger. All right. And we do have a video of some of these flames. You can see just how intense the flames are and just how close they got to the structures. Now, they're claiming that there was no structures damaged in any of these fires, and I find that very hard to believe. It's miraculous, if not anomalous, that no structures were impacted in any of these fires. It kind of reminds me of the Malibu fire, the first Malibu Franklin fire, where, Malibu was surrounded by fire, but only, maybe 10 or 20 homes were actually impacted. And the residents there even said that was the actual anomaly of the fire, is that so many homes were actually spared, and that seems to be the case here as well. All right, so now I'm going to get into some of the stats. So these are the two fires that broke out near Myrtle Beach. You can see Myrtle Beach at the bottom left of the screen there, and then Conway is underneath the left graphic or the left text here. Now, this one, it says, was 1,600 acres with 30% containment, and the other one was 800 acres with 80% containment. I believe that the northernmost fire has now been fully contained. However, the one in the Carolina forest to the south of that one is still at 30% containment as of this recording. Now, one problem that we had was that Watch Duty doesn't actually cover the eastern half of the United States. So I had to use a fire app called Genesis. And the maps just aren't quite as detailed on this one. And it shows the fire burn area as just like a dotted line instead of an actual fire footprint. But you can see that this fire in the Carolina forest is very close to where Highway 31 meets up with the 501 that heads towards Myrtle Beach. And that will come in, that will be relevant later, actually. All right, so before I go into more of the information, I'm going to share some of the news clips that have very telling stats in them.
Well, according to the South Carolina Forestry Commission, there have been over 100 fires today alone due to the dry conditions and high winds throughout the low country. These fires have been able to spread quickly. According to the Forestry Commission, the rapid increase in fires has put a strain on responding crews.
Okay, so early in Saturday, there was already about 100 fires, soon to be more than 200, actually. But what really caught my attention there was that he said the number of fires had put a strain on the resources. So when there's that many fires spread out all over the place, the fire department can only send so many people to each fire. And so that's what kind of makes it difficult. All right. Now I have another clip that's from later in the day where they had upped the number to 200 fires, and there's some more interesting details in this one too.
Right now, there is a state of emergency in the Carolinas. Dozens of wildfires burning across multiple states, leading to evacuations. The firefighters are battling those fires that erupted across South and North Carolina. South Carolina's governor declaring a state of emergency amid red flag warnings, with 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts threatening to fan the flames. Let's bring in ABC's Johnny Fernandez. Johnny, what's the latest with these fires and the evacuations?
Yeah, Phil. Well, the governor in South Carolina issued that state of emergency after over 4,000 acres burned, over 200 fires in South Carolina alone. So let's talk a little bit more about the fires. A major fire that they are looking at is the Carolina Forest Fire. That alone has burned over 1,200 acres just this weekend alone. Now, we know that crews over in Georgetown County, that's about 35 miles south of Myrtle Beach, they also worked to control a fire that burned about 800 acres just this weekend alone. So we know that crews there, they have been able to gain control in the Georgetown County fire, and most evacuations there have been lifted. So we know that warnings have been issued across the southeast, but this upcoming week, we know that warnings will be also issued in the southwest because of critical fire conditions there.
All right, Johnny Fernandez. Johnny, thank you.
All right. So by that point, they had 200 fires, and he said in South Carolina alone, and there was also about a dozen fires in North Carolina and some fires in Georgia as well. And he also said there was over 4,200 acres total that had been burning from just the 200 fires that were in South Carolina alone. And that may not actually include the fires that were in North Carolina as well. And I also have a clip from North Carolina that shows the area that was affected too.
And we've had extreme fire danger across the entire area today. We have been upgraded to a red flag warning, and that red flag warning does run until 10 o'clock tonight for the entire viewing area. Already we've had 9 wildfires reported today across the upstate of South Carolina, northeast Georgia, and wildfires also breaking out across western North Carolina. And the fire weather risk will continue as long as we have these very high wind gusts across the region.
Right.
I wanted to mention, I just had a thought of a video we did about a year ago. It was on Oahu, and I think the title of it is Little Fires Everywhere, because there was a period where Oahu experienced a high amount of little fires, like spread all over, kind of like how we're seeing here. And I believe one of those was in like a marshy area, which also kind of coincides with the low country. I know there's a lot of marshland in these areas, so
Right.
it made me think about that.
Yeah, not only is this marshland or swampland, but it's consistently humid almost year round. There is no real dry season in the Southeast. You could say that in the late summer, early fall, you might have some dry conditions sometimes, but usually summers and falls, even in the deep South, they're still very humid. And so,
Right.
and these areas actually, like I said, Hurricane Helene had flooded the area, and then even just recently they had snow and ice. This is from the week before the fire, where they had snow and ice accumulation, and it was a very harsh winter with plenty of snow this year. And so I don't see how the conditions could have gotten so dry. Speaking of conditions, it was windy, like he said, and the wind was predicted by SCEMA, the South Carolina Emergency Management Agency. And this was predicted as early as you can see February 28th here, which is the day before they were warning of increased fire danger, not just on Friday, but for Saturday as well. And then this is their weekend forecast, which was updated after the fire had actually started. And they were saying that the danger would go through 8 p.m. on Sunday. Now, as far as the winds go, I also have a clip about that because normally, in these areas, we have straight line winds. It's not like a trade wind, I would say, but usually the wind is from west to east or some variation of that. So you usually have some sort of eastward wind. And this time it was a little bit different. And I'm going to play a clip from a reporter who commented on the wind.
Another resident telling me that after they were able to put it out here, they relocated and then had to come back again. I've talked to several of the firefighters. I asked them, I said, where is it? People want to know, where is the fire? Where is it active? One firefighter telling me that it's everywhere. The wind is really the story here. It's moving it around and they're chasing it. And so you're getting hot spots and then it's moving again. If they put it out like they did here, and then the wind blows it back over and it starts again.
So what they were having was wind that was changing directions. And so it would blow the fire one way and they would chase it down, and then the wind would shift and blow it back the other way. And that particular neighborhood had actually caught, well, I mean, the neighborhood itself didn't catch fire twice, but the firefighters had to visit that neighborhood twice because the fire actually came back after they had put it out the first time. All right. So now, because of those winds, the governor, Henry McMaster, had implemented a statewide burning ban. And they went so far as to say that if you start a fire outdoors, you will go to jail. So it's a very harsh penalty. I do believe that the official story is that the fire in the Carolina forest was started by a backyard fire that had gotten out of control. So I believe probably, they're going to try to say that, there was probably some people having a recreational fire on the weekend, in their backyard, and it got out of control. I believe that's possible. However, very unlikely. There's a lot of other factors here, like all the fires starting everywhere.
And isn't like starting a fire or like, isn't it kind of part of the culture in Low Country? Like, I don't know, like a lot of
not just Low
camping.
Country, but all over the Deep South, even the Midwest. It is part of the culture during the nice times of the year.
When it's cold.
When it's cold, but even during the summer, you'll invite people over and have a fire. And so maybe they were having a barbecue with a fire or something. But maybe that explains the one fire, but it doesn't explain the other 200 fires that happened on the same day.
Right.
So, yeah. But however, the government overreacted and said, okay, if you start any fires, you're going to go to jail. Although, most sensible people, they're not going to try to start a fire when it's that windy anyway.
Right.
All right. So now, in addition to the wind, another problem was the smoke. So there was a lot of smoke that had covered several locations, several populated locations. You can see from this smoke that it looks mostly white, and it looks like perhaps combustive flames of vegetation, as opposed to, say, chemicals or plastic or rubber or fuels or anything like that. Okay, so now this is the air quality warnings that were for South Carolina at the time. You can see places like Myrtle Beach had the worst air quality, but even as far as Wilmington, North Carolina, and all the way down to Charleston, South Carolina, and all the way as far west as Greenville, they have also had fires on that end of South Carolina as well. So it looks like the air quality for at least half of South Carolina is very poor. All right. So now let's see what we're going to go to next. All right. So why would these fires be occurring is like the next thing I guess we're going to cover. And you've probably by now seen the claims of a smart city being planned for the Myrtle Beach area. And I looked into it, and there is a smart city planned for Myrtle Beach. It's a living lab called Meta Beach, and Meta is heavily involved. And Mark Zuckerberg, in fact, is building a Meta-controlled sea cable from Myrtle Beach to Spain. This cable is going to expand from Myrtle Beach, sometimes called Meta Beach, according to this project, all the way to Santander, Spain. Now, Santander has been mentioned before. It is one of the Segitur smart tourism destinations, and Santander has reached 80% plus compliance, and it has received its smart tourist destination badge, which is very similar to a smart city. It's just another like rebranding of it.
And then Shane, really quick for those a little less familiar with Meta encompasses Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and are there any other platforms? Those are the three big ones that Meta owns.
Yeah, there may be others, but those are the big three. Yes, they are all owned by Meta and controlled in part by Mark Zuckerberg. However, there's a lot of other investors and stuff at play there. So while there is a smart city here in Myrtle Beach called, well, this is their Living Lab program that's mentioned here. This is the article from WMBF News, which is a local news station. And I have some clips from them too that I'm going to play. Some of these you may have seen making the rounds.
New details tonight on plans to turn Myrtle Beach into Meta Beach. It's all part of making the city a smart city using new advanced technology. Our Ali Espinosa joins us live from downtown Myrtle Beach tonight. And Ali, city staff are actually calling this the fourth industrial revolution. Talk about the ultimate upgrade. So what does that mean for us here in Myrtle Beach?
It's the second fastest growing city in the entire country, and plans to bring it to the next level are ahead. Myrtle Beach Chief Innovation Officer Howard Waldy IV says he's been working to make Myrtle Beach a smart city since March of 2022.
Noah Popwell is the Director of Sales at Livable Cities, a Canadian-owned business that is an LED manufacturing streetlight company. Their sensors range from air quality, noise, and radar devices which attach to any streetlights and run off the power from the streetlight itself. Popwell says they will be working with the city police department and using the cameras and radar devices.
They're going to be utilizing our devices for some traffic-related data, so bringing in vehicle counts, vehicle speeds, all that information around the boardwalk, but also the downtown areas.
Through more advanced tourism attractions and safety measures like acoustic detection systems, which can detect the sound of gunshots, which have already been approved, the city of Myrtle Beach is working to keep up with what's ahead.
It's just the next phase of technological evolution. It allows us to test out some new technology that might end up becoming a part of the daily operation in the city.
Civic Dollars is an app that encourages folks to get off the couch and get outside to earn civic dollars. Those dollars can be exchanged for discounts or even donated to support local causes. The company Livable Cities focuses on smart city applications by using advanced sensors and software to produce valuable insights. And the company NC2 is a code that brings future cities to life through AR, augmented reality. CEO and founder of NC2 tells me their technology is being used across the country. They're excited to see the change they could have right here in Myrtle Beach. Meanwhile, Civic Dollars is based out of Ireland, but their CEO and founder tells me he's always wanted to test their technology here in the States.
Their Living Lab project and how it was helping tech companies get a foothold in the States and how to test their product.
The city of Myrtle Beach is formally launching the Smart Cities Initiative with 4 Living Lab participants. More than 25 companies from across the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom have explored the Living Lab program since its inception last year. The Living Lab program is an innovative public-private partnership designed to support the development of emerging technology.
And then I want to mention we did a video on this, the fourth industrial revolution, public-private partnerships. I forgot the title, but I'll link that video at the end screen. So if you guys want to hear more about that, we did a very in-depth video on that.
Yeah, I think the title was something like how the Maui disaster fits into the globalist plans, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So as we saw in that clip, there are several multinational corporations that have made deals with local governments in these public-private partnerships to create this smart city. Now, another name for public-private partnerships that's lesser known is called fascism or corporatism, which is a merger between, corporate power and the government. And we do see that occurring here. Now, we have verified that there is a smart city plan for Myrtle Beach. However, There is no smart city plan for the Carolina forest specifically. They're not rezoning it beyond multifamily use, actually. So most of the Carolina forest has been zoned for conservation. And then right up against that, the edge of that forest, where the wildland urban interface is, you have single family zoning, and that is not going to change. I looked at their 2040 plans, and it's still zoned as either conservation or single family. However, there is so where you see it says Carolina Forest in that small red box, there's a little green road underneath that. That I believe is the Carolina Forest Drive, which is going to be widened, and they're going to add pedestrian and bike lanes. And then the little blue squiggle right above the red box is a brand new road that's going to be built through the Carolina Forest. And this is going to carry car travel as well as bike and pedestrian as well. Now, the Carolina Forest is supposed to be a wildland habitat corridor. And so the road, when they build it, is going to have to be built in such a way that it doesn't block the passage of wildlife. So they might have to build it up off of the ground and have it so the wildlife can pass underneath, or some other plan. But they're going to have to build that in an ecologically friendly way. However, so Myrtle Beach Smart City is not an exact bullseye for where this fire is. However, this fire could just be like a test for a future fire, like I believe the Malibu Franklin fire was. The Franklin fire surrounded Malibu, but impacted very few structures. And the residents had said, how lucky, how much of a miracle it was, and how anomalous even that was. Well, just a few weeks later, it turned out that the Palisades fire came through and actually took out more of Malibu than the Malibu fire did. So just be on the lookout for future fires in this area and even closer to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, and that's something we see with a lot of the major fires. There's a smaller one before, like a month or two before. We saw that in Lahaina. We saw that in the Palisades. I just wanted to draw some comparisons with what's going on here in Myrtle Beach and Lahaina. They have a lot in common. They're a big tourism city. They're on the water, and they're smaller towns. And again, big plans for a smart city upgrade.
Right. And then after Hurricane Helene, we had found out about the lithium deposits in North Carolina, and that was speculated as being a very possible reason for the disaster. And that was actually a bullseye. Hurricane Helene hit exactly the spots. I mean, yes, it's a huge hurricane, but the spots where the lithium is were one of the most heavily affected areas. So we decided to look for minerals and mines in South Carolina. And it turns out that there are some iron and titanium mines, but there is also some thorium mining as well. So what I showed here is in orange, you see Myrtle Beach iron site, which is very close to Myrtle Beach itself. And then just to the left of that orange box, you can see where the Myrtle Beach fire was. And then about 30 miles to the southeast or southwest of that, you can see what's called the Pawleys Island thorium site. And that's actually a thorium mining and processing facility. And thorium is very similar to uranium. It's a fissile material that can be used for nuclear power. And it's considered kind of a clean alternative to uranium, but I wouldn't consider any fissile material to be clean. One thing that's missing from this map is the fire that was near Georgetown. There's a place called Prince George near Georgetown, which is just to the left of this red box here. And so you can see how close that these minerals are to where the fires were. So I would say that that's actually a closer match than the smart city is, but we don't have anything definitive as far as the motive at this point. It could be for smart city, it could be for minerals, and it could also be just to gentrify the area, because Myrtle Beach is a little bit lower than the median of the U.S. income. So Myrtle Beach income is about 66% of the U.S. median. So if the U.S. makes about 74,000 average, Myrtle Beach makes about 49,000 average.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up, when it comes to setting up mining it's not just the mines that need to be developed, but there also needs to be processing plans. We just had a conversation with someone about you can't just mine the product and expect it to be ready. There's also a processing process. A lot of times that raw material needs to be transported. So there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be developed. And these are huge shipments. I think it's just like they send the rock to the processing plant. And then you also need a place to assemble the, these minerals or, the lithium, cobalt.
Right.
You need to assemble it into a usable product. And there's many different ones. And then, with all of this industry coming, you need to house the people that are running these industries. And, some of these people are going to be very well paid individuals that are going to want to live in a nice big house with a lot of modern amenities. So I think that might also be part of the plan, is to clear more land,
Yeah.
to build more infrastructure for the other things that is needed.
I do think they're going to need a lot of like entry-level employees as well. And so you're going to probably see workforce housing development that comes along with that as well.
Mhm.
All right. So that pretty much covers most of what happened this time. But I just wanted to touch on the history of the fires in South Carolina. So South Carolina does have fires. They're not nearly as common as they are in, say, the Southwest, because like I said, it's traditionally a humid area. However, it can, I guess, dry out occasionally. And that did happen once in 2009. So in April 22nd of 2009, they did have a fire that was, it said, the dangerous Highway 31 fire, which is very similar to where this one seems to be burning as well. But in this case, it destroyed 76 homes and damaged 97 others before being controlled. They also mentioned shifting winds, abnormal nighttime weather conditions, and it made the fire very unpredictable and dangerous. There were no lives lost and no injuries occurred. I
I just
don't
wanted
have.
to say, it
Go
was
ahead.
interesting. They said unusual nighttime weather. And I've been noticing, I know with LA, the humidity dropped really low at night, which is not how it's supposed to work. It's usually the opposite. So again, we saw that in the LA fires, how, at night, I guess
Right.
climate shifted in the different direction.
Yeah. So unlike this fire, that fire in 2009 actually did have homes that were impacted. And I didn't have them ready here, but they do look very similar to what we saw in Paradise and Santa Rosa, where the homes seem to have been just surgically erased and all of the green grass and trees around it are completely untouched. So it almost looks like they came in with a pencil eraser and just erased the homes off of the photo and left everything else.
Right. And we
Okay.
don't have damage photos from these current fires yet. Right?
They claim that there is no structures that have been impacted. So I couldn't find a single report of a structure or a vehicle that was impacted. So as far as private property damage goes, it seems to be extremely low, if not non-existent, which to me is very suspicious. It's an anomaly in itself.
Okay.
All right. So the next thing I wanted to go into was the forecast. So we're not out of the clear yet. We still have dry conditions, not only in South Carolina, but all the way from New Mexico to the East Coast, basically. And so starting yesterday, they had an elevated red flag risk. It was extreme from El Paso to Roswell. Thankfully, I don't think any fires had developed. Nothing major had come out of that. This system had moved into Texas afterwards, and there were some fires in Texas. There was a very large fire in Oklahoma. I think it's called the Saddle Gap Fire, which last I looked was over 2,000 acres. And they did also have a wind event come through. So we're going to have to try to keep an eye on that as well, because that could be a situation that gets out of hand. However, this wind event is moving across the United States, and it's going to be traveling through the Deep South today and this evening, and then the East Coast tomorrow. So South Carolina and the entire East Coast is basically going to be under another red flag condition going into Wednesday. So, you want to be weather aware and be prepared, because if things get out of hand, you may have to evacuate or be prepared to defend your property.
The Carolinas have been really getting hit with horrible disaster.
Yeah, ever since last fall with Hurricane Helene and then the big snow and freeze, it's been unseasonably cold this winter. And for it to end up being dry last weekend or this weekend, it's very unusual, because just like I said, a week and a half ago, they had snow and ice, and now they're claiming that they have red flag conditions from all the dry weather. So it's very...
With these fires, it almost seems like the water even is kind of like a magnet for it. We're seeing marshes on fire, and we're seeing also, I know in Texas, we saw snow falling immediately after the fire, or right after, or kind of.
That reminds me, actually. So, right after the fire in Texas, so the Smokehouse Creek fire near Amarillo, Texas, it actually had snowfall on the fire, and it didn't really do anything to stop the fire. And that was kind of interesting. But then we've also seen, since the beginning of this year and even prior, we saw heavy fog that was followed by extreme cold, and these extreme cold events had lots of snow and ice. And we spoke to Dane Wigington previously about these cold temperatures, and he talked about something called chemical ice nucleation. And we do believe that the fog and the subsequent cold weather that we had may have involved chemical ice nucleation. And Dane and I both suspect that these chemical ice nucleation injections into the atmosphere could also contain desiccants, if not accelerants. So now the desiccant, aluminum oxide, can dry everything out and also act like an accelerant in a fire. Not nearly as much as thermite, but in a similar fashion. So it's really strange that fires would follow these winter weather events so soon after. So it makes me wonder if they were injected, if the aerosols had, if they had injected aerosolized aluminum and other desiccants to help prep it for the fire.
That might explain why marshes are lit on fire.
Yeah, that's really strange to see a marshland or a swampland catch fire like that, because they're usually so wet.
Right. We saw that in Maui. The water was reported to have been on fire. I know they said the ash covered the water and that caught fire.
Well, I've heard a couple of different stories. So like in the harbor, they said that the boats could have leaked their diesel fuel that would float on the water and then get covered by the embers and ashes, and it would make like a seal on top of the water. I don't know how plausible that is, but we do know that there was other technologies at play in Lahaina, so who knows what could have happened there.
Okay. All right. So we'll just sum it up with, so we don't think that this is too clear for the smart city. It's more likely related to the mining and the infrastructure related to the mining. And it might be a precursor, but we don't know really. But was there anything else that we missed?
I did have a clip that was going to go into the weather this week, but I basically already covered that when I spoke about the wind event that's traveling across the United States. We did have news clips to show that explain that, but you basically have already heard it.
Okay, and we'll keep an eye on this, and if things develop and change a lot, we'll try to put something up, a post or maybe a short or something. Okay, so that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to everyone that sent links and information and let us know that you guys were interested in hearing about the Carolina fires. So that's going to do it. Thank you guys, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.